We're talking about how Beis Yosef, the tribe of Yosef, captured the city of Beis Kel, which was also known as Luz. And we discussed how this one person from that city was able to save his life by helping the Jewish people, giving them the secret entrance into Luz, and therefore he was able to be allowed to live. And then he went somewhere else and he made his own city of Luz, and we discussed yesterday all the miraculous natures of Luz. Now it's interesting, when we're talking about here, it says Vayalu Beis Yosef, in Pasuk Chav Beis, Vayalu Beis Yosef. It's the house of Yosef, and that will be in contradistinction to what happens in Chav Zayin, when we discuss how Menashe, which comes from Yosef, does not drive out certain people. So we ask, so why is it called Beis Yosef? Number one, there's no tribe called Yosef. Yosef is split up into two, Ephraim and Menashe. So why is it referring to Beis Yosef? Because the answer is, because Yosef himself, Yosef HaTzadik himself, he knew how to deal with the Yetzer Hara properly. Yosef HaTzadik was the one who could deal with taiva, with lust, successfully when he was down in Egypt. He knew how to strike the right balance. He knew when to resist. He knew when to help. And therefore, when the tribe that descended from Yosef, be it Menashe or Ephraim, when it did the right thing, they referred back to Beis Yosef, because they did the right thing based on the teachings that Yosef gave them. That's why he stresses Yosef. And really, ideally, Beis Yosef should have had the power of the Luz that eventually went to this Ish, to this man. But they didn't. And we'll see as well, there's a whole other issue here that's not mentioned overtly in the Torah, the idea of Pesel Micha. There was a certain idol that was taken with their tribe. So, again, not totally getting everything that was possible to get out of this place of Luz. But then we get now, as we continue now in Pasuk of Zion, we get to really problematic areas. So I remember, we mentioned everything about Luz. Did we finish everything about Luz yesterday?
Yes, we did.
I'm trying to remember if there's anything I forgot. We talked about the Luz bone. Right. Yes, we finished that up. That's correct. Okay, good. So now in Pasuk of Zion, we're going to quickly go to the end of the chapter now. It's all bad news. All the way to the end. It's just bad news. Lahorish Menashe es Beis Sha'on ves Benosea, and the tribe of Menashe did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Beis Sha'on and the surrounding areas. Ves Tanach ves Benosea, and the city of Tanach and the surrounding area. Ves Yoshvei Dor ves Benosea, and the people who dwelled in the city of Dor and its surrounding area. Ves Yoshvei Yivlam ves Benosea, the ones who lived in Yivlam and the surrounding areas. Ves Yoshvei Megiddo ves Benosea, and those who live around Megiddo, etc. Vayol HaKnani Lasheves B'Aretz Hazos, and the Knanim were able and desirable to live in this land. In other words, the Canaanites were very happy to live there, and they did not drive them out. Chavches Vayihi Ki Chazak Yisrael, when they got stronger, then Vayosam Esak, and they were able to exert a little more power over the Jews. What happened? They were able to Vayosam Esaknani Lamas. They were able to tax them. But Vahorish lo horishu, but to drive them out, they did not drive them out. So again, it's the same type of criticisms. Even though Menashe just saw that they were able to miraculously defeat the city of Beis Kel, right? Still, they would not take out all the other people in the Devasik that we had right now. And even when they got stronger, it says, all they did was take them for taxes, and they didn't drive them out as the Torah says they should do that. So every which way to indict the Jewish people, the Navi is doing that. Okay, Pasuk Chav Tes. Ve'Ephraim, also Ephraim, lo horisha saknane yoshev begazer. He did not drive out the Canaanites who dwelt in Gozer. Vayeshev Aknani Bekirbo Begozer, and the Canaanites dwelt in their midst in Gozer as well. Moving on, Lamed. Zvulun, it's now just a bunch of dominoes. Zvulun Lohorishes Yoshve Kitron Vis Yoshe Nahalo. Zvulun did not drive out those who dwelt in Kitron and in Nahalo. Vayeshev Aknani Bekirbo Vayulamas, and the Canaanites lived amongst them, and they paid taxes to them as well. Okay, moving on. Lamed Aleph. Asher Lohorishes Yoshve Akko Vis Yoshe Tzidon. Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Akko and the inhabitants of Sidon, Ves Achlov, Ves Achsiv, Ves Chalbo, Ves Afik, Ves Rechov, and the cities of Achlov, Achsiv, Chelbo, and Afik and Rechov.
Was Hashem communicating with any of our Jewish boys at that time?
It's coming up in the next chapter.
Because it appears to me they were totally disobeying what they were told to do.
We'll wait till next chapter.
Oh, okay.
Lamed Beis. Now, things are a little worse over here with Asher. Why? Because Vayeshev ho Asheri B'kerev HaKnani Yoshvei Aretz. Look at the wording here. The tribe of Asher, they lived in the midst of the Knani, who dwelt in the land. Kilo Harish, because they did not drive them out. So Rabbi Yosef Karo explains, what does that mean?
They mixed.
That now they were the minority. There were so many Canaanites in the Shevet of Asher. Instead of saying the Canaanites dwelt amongst the tribe of Asher, it says Asher dwelt amongst the Canaanites. Right? So it must be that the Canaanites were more than them.
Majority.
So now that's going to make it a lot easier to assimilate and pick up their ways. Lamed Gimel. Naphtali lohorish es Yoshve beis Shemesh es Yoshve beis Anos. And Naphtali did not drive out the inhabitants of Beis Shemesh and the inhabitants of Beis Anos. Yeshev Bekerev HaKnani Yoshveretz, and they too, they dwelt in the midst of the Canaanites who dwelt in the land. But then finally, the Yoshve Beis Shemesh Beis Anos Holam Lamas. But eventually, the people of Beis Shemesh and Beis Anos became for them to pay taxes as well. So. There must have been a time where they got a little stronger than them too, but not for a while. And then Lamed Daled got so bad in tribe of Dan. Vayilachotzu hamori es b'nei Dan hahara v'lo nesanu lodes la'emek. The Amorites, they oppressed the tribe of Dan to stay in the mountain because they would not allow them to get into the valley. In other words, they kind of boxed them in to the mountain, the tribe of Dan, where now you begin to see the non-Jews are exerting their pressure in terms of where the Jews can even want to live. And then they have so much chutzpah, the people of the Amori in Lamed Hey. Vayol Hamori l'sheves bahar cheres vayolod uvisha'al lavim. And then the Amorites wanted to go and take the mountain too, take the whole thing. And where do they want to live? Bahar cheres, in the mountain of Cheres, in Ayalon and in Shalavim. Interesting, we're coming to the end of the chapter and we're talking about the mountain's called Har Cheres. If you recall, way in the beginning, remember we talked about Adoni Bezek?
Yeah.
And we talked about Cheres over there, right? We mentioned the word Cheres earlier on in the chapter, and we were talking about, where was that? We had that very early. Ladoni Bezek. Right, where do we have that? I mentioned it before.
Fifth pasuk.
Fifth pasuk?
Are you talking about Adoni Bezek in Bezek?
No, Cheres.
Oh.
We had the word Cheres. I just can't remember it. I just had it. No, we said that Bezek meant Cheres, right? We said that Bezek meant earthenware. Remember? And we said that earthenware can only be purified by destroying them. Bezek meant earthenware. Right, thank you. So we kind of start off with Bezek, where we're breaking the earthenware. And hey, what's happening? They're living in the Har Cheres. They're living as earthenware that has not been broken. So that's the counterpoint. How things have not worked very well. So in the beginning, the Jews were good, and they destroyed Adoni Bezek, and they destroyed the Cheres. But now at the end, the Jews were not listening, and the Canaani were dwelling with all their terribleness, their earthenware type of behavior. And they even want to drive out the people of Dan. But that didn't happen because Vatich Bad Yad Beis Yosef, again back to Beis Yosef, you see. The strong hand of Yosef helped out. They were able to push them away and even really strike a big blow to the Amorites. But the best they could do again was just what? Vayil Omas. They only took them for taxes. Even though they were able to really give them a tough blow, still at the end of the day, they only took them for taxes. They did not drive them out totally. And it got to the point where there was an understanding where there was a border in Lamed Vav, Ugvul Amori Mimale Akrabim Me'aselam, and the border with the Amorites was in Male Akrabim, from the rock and beyond, meaning to say, it became like almost an official policy that they have their area, we have our area, and there's nothing more to deal with. Very scary. And that ends that chapter. Now, a number of tribes were still not mentioned. Who was not mentioned? Ruvain and Gad are not mentioned. Why are Ruvain and Gad not mentioned?
Other side?
Because they're on the other side of the Jordan River, and there wasn't much to deal with over there because the enemies are already destroyed in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. So there's nothing for them to do. Who else is not mentioned? Oh, I'll spare you the time. Yisachar. Yisachar is not mentioned. We can speculate that Yisachar, they were the unique ones of the Jewish people. They were the ones who are dedicated to Torah. So it could very well be that they were the ones that did do what they were supposed to do. And maybe that was the only one. And the Navi here, since he's being critical of the Jews, he doesn't have to mention the one tribe that did what they were supposed to do, but rather he's focusing on all the things that were not done. Okay, so ends this chapter. Very difficult chapter insofar as how in the world could the Jewish people make such a terrible mistake? Okay, the answer is yet to come. The
Sounds like the Knesset today.
Sounds like the Knesset. Well, I don't know, but it's always the same problem. You got to get rid of the Canaanites. You got to get rid of the Arabs.
Sounds like Eretz Israel.
You got to be able to do.
Reuben and Gad, did they live up to their part of the agreement? They were supposed to help in the battles.
Who?
Reuben, right? And Gad, weren't they?
Well,
They did it, but the battles are still continuing.
No.
They're not there.
well, they all messed up. Yehuda, everybody messed up. Reuven was helping Yehuda. They're working with Yehuda, but they didn't do their. Once Yehuda didn't do their job the way they're supposed to, the rest of the tribes didn't do it either. In general, it was an overall failure of almost all the tribes to do the job that they had to do. That's what it comes out. Where that failure comes from, it will be hinted to later on in this upcoming chapter. It will be hinted to. You have to look very carefully to find it, but it's not so overt. So Sam was concerned how the Jewish people do all this, and God doesn't seem to get involved in what's going on. Well, God's going to get plenty involved in the next chapter.
So did each tribe have its own leader who was directing them what to do? Like before, Joshua was sort of the general. So what's happening here? Each tribe is their own battle plan and their own leader?
Well, everybody had, so it's not clear. It's not clear. I don't know what kind of army existed and things like that. It's just not just.
These aren't the first battles that they fought.
They fought with Yeshua. There with Yeshua is mostly Yeshua was the leader, and there was a national army.
Right.
So now we're not dealing with a national army anymore. But I'm sure there were members of each tribe who were part of the army. So now that armies from each tribe went back to their tribes, their tribe portions, to finish off the job. So there were armies. I mean, there was, from all the Jewish people, there was armies. So now these soldiers came back to their tribes, and now they're supposed to finish off the job in their area. But you see, let's just leave it a little bit, and we'll see why they didn't do their job. We'll get to it maybe today, for sure next week. Okay, we start chapter Beis, and the next section goes from Aleph to Hey. The next 5 psukim is its next section. Vaya'al malach Hashem min hagilgol el habochim. and a malach of Hashem, we'll translate it right now as an angel, came from Gilgal to Bochim, and is going to now give a tremendous amount of musar, rebuke, to the Jewish people. Now, it's very interesting. Hashem's going to send a malach who's going to talk to the Jewish people. Very unlikely. So the Targum of Yonasan ben Uzziel right away says, he sends a neviah bishlichus min kodom Hashem. He sends a navi. He sends a prophet. It's a prophet. And the commentators all those, who was the prophet? Prophet was Pinchas. Okay, so we got to understand, why was he called a malach? Why wasn't he called the navi? Pinchas by name. So first of all, we got to understand the word malach really does not mean an angel. I don't know where this term came from. It's a goyish term, an angel with wings and things like this. I don't know where it got its. I know where it got it, but it's not where it's meant to be. Really, if you think about it, the word malach has in it the word melech with an aleph. So it really means like an agent of the king. An agent of the king. Or better, if you look at the word malach, you see the word melacha. Melacha, which means work. So it means an agent who does the work, but does the work. In other words, just like we look in terms of a celestial malach, God's malachim, the sources of power that are intermediaries between Hashem and us to make things happen in this world, that run the forces. There are forces that come from Hashem. Hashem gives malachim the power to get the job done with the forces that he gives them. So the malachim always do the malacha. They always do the job. So such thing as a malach not doing his job. You have your job and you go and do it. Maybe the fact that Navi calls the word malach here is to kind of show here the prophet, he's doing his job. How come you're not doing your job? Right? Everyone's supposed to be doing their job. No one's doing their job over here. So we're using a term that kind of references doing the job. And that's who it is. Now, we're dealing with Pinchas over here. Why Pinchas more than anyone else? So we can remember that it was Pinchas was the one who was able to, when we came to the end of the 40 years in the desert, and the Jewish people were seduced by the Midianites and the Moabites to get involved in licentious behavior and idolatry, and many, many Jews were involved, and the tribe of Reuven was particularly involved. What did Pinchas do? He was the first one to be, as the pasuk says, Bekanoes kinasi, to take up for God's cause and be jealous for God and to be zealous for God. So Pinchas was the first Jew to combat this immoral, assimilationist, negative trend. He represents calling it as is and taking decisive action. Interesting how Pinchas himself was not a warrior at this point. No longer was he a warrior, because, so why didn't he do any fighting? We could have used him as a good warrior. But the answer is he now was a Navi. And the Navi has a different job. The job of the Navi is to commune with Hashem, to be able to give messages to the Jewish people. Navi cannot be a military leader. Two do not go together. You normally have a king. In Jewish history, you have a king and a Navi. The king has to take care of the realities on the ground. The Navi is the spokesperson of God and tells us if we're doing the right thing or not, and gives us the directives of God. After Moshe Rabbeinu, no one person can hold both jobs. That was how unbelievably great Moshe was. But it just doesn't work out that way. If you're the leader, you're way too busy dealing with the country to be able to have your own time for yourself, to work on yourself to the point where you can become a Navi. Very, very difficult to happen. So Aaron was like the, but even that is not the same. He was the Kohen, which is a little different. The Kohen is a third leg. You got the Jewish leader, you got the Melech, the Kohen Gadol, and the Navi. Those three parts. So the Kohen Gadol, he's doing the service in the temple, which is also keeping him quite busy. It's a different role to play. If to teach Torah to the people, it's more of a, really the king is the military and the leader in terms of all the social welfare systems and all that. That's what the king's the leader of. The Kohen Gadol is the religious leader, but you still need the prophet. Prophet has to keep us all on the straight and narrow path. So over here, Pinchas, that's his role now, and he's going to be critical of the Jewish people. Now again, he's described as a mekaneh. He's the one that's jealous for Hashem, which is the antithesis of tava, of lust. Tava is a very bad form of people getting together. Lust is a very negative way of getting together, while someone who's mekaneh, who's zealous for Hashem, is a good form of, usually jealousy is strife and separation. Well, if you're zealous for Hashem, there's a good place of separation. We're supposed to be separated from the non-Jews. So that's where Pinchas fits as the perfect person to give the rebuke, as Pinchas understood the ultimate separation between Jew and non-Jews when he had to kill Cosby and Zimri when they were involved in the terrible licentious behavior that they were there, and he was the one that restored the balance, like what a shofet's supposed to do. And he was Bekano Eskinasi Bisocham, amongst the Jewish people. He was able to restore the equilibrium then, and now he's being sent to restore the equilibrium now as well. So where did he get the prophecy, and where did he move from that area of prophecy? From Gilgal. What's so special about Gilgal? Do we remember in the Sefer Yeshua what happened in Gilgal? Gilgal was when the Jewish people just crossed the Jordan River. Right after that was the mass circumcision of the entire country. The Jews did not have circumcisions while they were in the desert for the 40 years. So they came into the land of Israel uncircumcised. Gilgal comes from the word Hashem rolled away the shame of Egypt from the Jewish people, that they were uncircumcised. So that's what happened in Gilgal. So what does Gilgal have to do with anything over here? The same idea. The Rambam explains. What is the reason for circumcision? One of the main reasons is to restrain, to induce a restraint in matters of sexuality. When you're cutting away part of that organ, it's meant to reduce the overall pleasure one can have from that organ, and it's meant to cause restraint amongst Jews to have this. So what Pinchas is doing, what God tells Pinchas to do, is take the message of Gilgal to the people. Take that message to the people, so they have to learn, because what eventually is going to happen, and it was happening, is that this was all leading to immorality. Okay. So let's move on and see what the pasuk. Oh, there's one last thing to discuss over here. So still, what's the meaning of being a malach? So very interesting. Again, this is all what he represents, and unfortunately what the Jewish people did not represent. So they bring like this. The Mesil Shishar. First is a medrash. The medrash says that Nevi'im are called Malachim, and they bring this pasuk, and they tell us it was Pinchas, and they say, so why was he called a Malach? So the rabbis say Pinchas, at the time that he had his divine inspiration, Hayapanav Boros Kelapidim, his face was, when he had the prophetic vision, his face was like it was a torch, like mamash, a fire. Now, as well, remember from Sefer Yeshua that when Rachav had to hide the two spies, Pinchas and Kalev, it says she hid him. She hid Kalev, not Pinchas, because Pinchas was a malach as well. Was invisible. You know, and I think at the time then I told you it's possible for even holy people to be invisible. I told the stories from the Holocaust. I don't want to go over that. But anyway, but what I do want to read is from Luzzatto. In Mesil Shasharim, in the 26th chapter, right at the end of the book, he talks about the idea of Kedusha, of holiness. And he describes the following. Just read a little bit. He says, what's the final goal that a Jewish person, in theory, could become? he says, the Jewish person should be able to reach a level where he's totally separated from physicality, and he cleaves at all times with Hashem. And he says, and that attitude of life, that way is where you see where Hashem called the prophets malachim, called the prophets angels. And he says the following general rule, klal shel davar, the general rule, the idea of kedusha. What's the idea of holiness? What's the idea of holiness? As opposed to purity. So, there's aspects of separating from the physicality. Okay. But what's kedusha? Kedusha is a much greater level. He says, kedusha is she'adam dovek kol kach belokav, that a person is so connected to Hashem. So every activity he does in this physical world, Hashem, it doesn't get separated and move away from him no matter what he does. No matter what he does, he is as attached to Hashem as when he's davening in shul, just as attached to Hashem then. He's just as attached when he's eating his breakfast. Just as attached. There isn't any difference as his connection, his closeness to Hashem. To the point where the physical things that the tzaddik is making use of, they become elevated and they reach a higher level of reality than before he used them. Which is really the goal of what this world is all about. Hashem created the whole world so that every piece and everything in this world is meant to reach its tikkun, to reach its correction, for what its purpose, why it was put in here. There's a reason why the chicken laid eggs. There's a reason why God created chickens, and the reason why the chickens lay the eggs. Why? So that one day a tzaddik should eat the egg. And that egg is being used totally in the service of Hashem. We're not talking merely that the egg is giving the tzaddik the strength because it's got the protein inside of himself to be able to serve Hashem, which is also true. It's way beyond that idea. He says every single thing in this world has to serve its purpose. So the chicken, God didn't put the chicken in the world just to walk around. The chicken has to have a purpose. The eggs that it lays has to have a purpose. So the only way it could have a purpose is if a tzaddik uses it in his service to Hashem. Okay? So the idea being that, these eggs, have to fulfill its role. So when the tzaddik makes a brach on the egg and eats the egg and brings it into his system, the tzaddik becomes like an altar. And now that egg, so to speak, goes right to Shemayim. That chicken who laid the egg goes right to Shemayim. Now, of course, there is no, what do they say? Dogs don't go to heaven, and chickens don't go to heaven per se, but their purpose does, and why Hashem created them does. Now, that already, it's very hard for your average Jew to do this, because many of us will eat the eggs because we're hungry, and that's about it, and we don't really think about giving purpose to this egg. Now, we're not saying that that's sinful behavior, God forbid, but it isn't the behavior of a tzaddik either. It's okay. Listen, God gives us this many levels. Hashem says that you want to make use of this world. Well, it's my world. Make a brach on it. Acknowledge that it's mine. I'll let you have it. But you're still very far away from using it for what it really is there for. So when a person is totally attached to Hashem, then everything he touches turns to purpose. Everything he touches turns to purpose. That's why the tradition used to be that when tzaddikim died and they had to make the coffin to bury the tzaddik, they would make it out of the wood of the very table that he ate his meals at. Because the table that he ate was a very holy table. Because when a tzaddik's at a table, he doesn't know anything but holy things around that table, so the table becomes holy. Everything in the world that a tzaddik touches becomes holy because he's making use of it. And it's much more, in other words, the world gets elevated much more than the fact that the tzaddik has gone down to engage in the physical world. So it's the idea of being a kadosh, a holy person, is not to be construed as other religions think, that a holy person goes to a monastery and doesn't have anything to do with the world. That's not true. And that is the end goal. Go to the monastery, we never see you again. Obviously what that's saying is there's only a limited amount of people who can do this, and frankly, if people live in a monastery, it doesn't help much for the rest of the world. Yeah, maybe to be a Navi you have to seclude yourself for certain times in the day. Even when we daven, we kind of seclude ourselves in our own world of prayer, but the idea is to go back into this world and to be totally engaged in this world and to take everything in this world and elevate everything that exists in this world and use it for the purpose of Hashem's world. That is a holy person. That's a kaddish. That's what holiness means in Yiddishkeit. And he's saying, why does that happen? Let me just read the last two lines. He says, because sichlo v'daito kfuim tomid begadusa yishbarach v'rovamusa kedushaso. Because his intellect and his das, his understanding of reality is permanently focused on the greatness of Hashem. It's all Hashem, all the time. And it's as if he's connected to the angels above. The angels above only have one mantra. Whatever Hashem does, right? I am here, right? As Colin Powell said, I am here to do the bidding of the president. Vizel. That's what he said. I don't know if that's what he did, but that's what he said. It sounded like a very good line, right? So that's what a malach. I only have one job. Whatever Hashem wants me to do. It's not even. I don't even have any of my own personal desires. I have no personal desires. Nothing. Whatever Hashem wants. If Hashem wants me to get bizyonis now, Hashem wants me to be embarrassed now, so I'll be embarrassed. You don't think there were Navis who were embarrassed? They go tell the Jews they're not doing good things. They want to kill them. And they did kill them. And he was happy to die. Because he's doing the will of Hashem. That's the only thing. Can you imagine if that's how you spent your day? You'd never get into fights with people. You'd never be unhappy. You'd never be grumpy. You'd never be sad. Because I'm here just to the will of Hashem. Finish. There's no me at all. Right? So therefore, that's how he ends off. Until he's mamish like the higher angels. But the difference is, Odenu Balamazel, well, he's still in this world. That's what makes human beings so much greater than an angel. It's easy for an angel to be an angel when you're up there. When you can't smell food. You can't have this kind of pleasure that we can have. And that's a seductive pleasure that one has to be able to work around. Right? And that's last week's parsha, the B'nai Elohim, the children of God, where according to Medrash, the angels came down and they lived like people who didn't do such a good job. Couldn't take it, whatever that means. But I'm just saying, but so that's why they call the Navi a Malach. A Navi is a Malach, because all he does, because a Navi, obviously, because Lutzado says, and then when you're finished with Kedusha, that's the highest level, all the steps of developing and being a Jew. Then when you're there, if Hashem will bless you, you will be granted prophecy. That's the final thing, Ruach HaKodesh. But that only happens to a person who's mamish a kadosh. So, obviously, you see what the implication is over here. The Jewish people were sent to live in Eretz Yisrael to be, as we learned by Har Sinai, to be a goy kadosh, a nation of holy people. Which means Hashem wanted that there should be Jews living in the land of Eretz Yisrael, working on farms, living like regular people like everybody else, but being so connected to Hashem the entire time with everything that they did. And that will elevate the entire Eretz Yisrael, and the whole world will learn from this, and they'll learn that there's a concept of being a very holy people. That was the job. Part of the job means, and you can't do that when you got Canaanites living there. Because they're the total opposite. They take everything in this world to use it for themselves, not to use it for God. They're the total opposite. So therefore, the first job you have to do is you got to get rid of them. If you don't get rid of them, you will not be able to do the job you have to do. And they don't get rid of them. And therefore, comes the Navi, who's called a Malach, to say, you see the way in other words, the fact that Pinchas just approached the people. It's interesting, There's a pay right at this point in the pasuk. In the middle of the pasuk, there's a pay. That means in the scrolls, right? You have a pay over there.
Where? Which pasuk?
Pasuk Aleph, right in the middle. V'yal malach Hashem min Gilgal el habochim.
Yeah.
Right? Is there a little break in the line? Yeah.
It's not a page.
It's a break. Okay, but it's a psucha. It's a psucha. Okay, it's a break. What's the break? We haven't finished the pasuk yet. But the answer is the fact that the malach ascended to them. The fact that he just came. Even before he opened his mouth, he already sent the message. You understand? Like what it is? It stops. It's a break already, but he didn't say anything yet. He didn't have to say anything. The fact that the Navi came and they see, oh, whoa, there's a Kaddish. There's a Kaddish. It's like he already blew them away. Because what he's going to say is only that which he represents and what he is. Okay? So he comes to a place called Bochim. Why is the place called Bochim? We will see in a minute. Bochim means to cry. And we'll see the words he said to the Jewish people brought them to tears. And this is what he has to say. And we're not going to get to what he has to say today. So we will...
What was Pinchas coming from at this particular point?
What?
Where was he coming from?
Gilgal.
Oh, he was living in Gilgal.
Whatever, he got the prophecy in Gilgal,
Yeah.
but he came from Gilgal. In other words, he ascended from Gilgal. He says, I'm coming from Gilgal and I have a message to tell you. And the message, a very strong message that will bring the Jewish people to tears.